Hey, this is Mike from Minimal 3DP, and today I'm working on an upgrade for my Mercury 1.1. So let's go ahead and get started. Quite a while ago, I did a video upgrading my Ender 5 Plus to the Mercury 1.1, and I gotta say I'm very pleased with that printer. If I'm looking cost-wise, you can right now, I've seen on Facebook Marketplace an Ender 5 Plus, you can get it somewhere between $150 to usually $300. I'd shoot for the low end, of course. And so that printer is, a lot of people are replacing it, getting rid of it. I don't want to say it was a bad printer, but compared to a Bamboo, Voron, Creality K2 Plus, some of these other enclosed printers, it's just not that good nowadays. But by turning into a Mercury 1.1, you're getting almost Voron-like performance, and I think overall it's a good printer. Now, over the next couple weeks, I'm going to be upgrading the printer, and I'm going to do intersperse some videos about Orca Slicer and some other stuff. So what I have is some CNC machine pieces that I'm going to use to replace what I have, basically like the top of the printer for the X and Y axes. I had originally printed stuff in PLA Plus, which deformed, cracked, and everything else. Now, at the time, I didn't have an enclosed printer. Funssor was nice enough to send me some of their upgrade pieces to try. I've actually looked at these before, and I actually think this is going to be a really good upgrade. Now, if I switch over, I'll show you what they've sent me, and we'll take a look at that. So they've sent me this kit, and so I have all the pieces to do the XY motion, and let's go ahead and we'll just start the upgrade. Now, the way I'm starting off this project is I've just taken all the pieces and I've laid them around on the bed where they need to go. And first thing I'm going to do is I need to undo the belts. Now, this is probably going to be the biggest pain for me because I have these already cut. I'm doing a stealth burner here. I'm not super thrilled with this hot end, mainly because I think I put it on a little janky. So I'm going to tighten some stuff up. I don't think I'm going to replace any parts. I do have a Bamboo X1C hot end in here, so it actually does move pretty fast. Now, rather than bore everybody with pulling off the top piece, I'm just going to remove everything, and then basically I'll install one side of the printer so you can see how that's done. You could do the other side on your own, and then I'll show you how to tighten the belts and get everything straightened out. So give me a minute, let me switch some stuff around, we'll get started. Now, as you can see, I have the hot end off, but I'm going to point out a mistake I made. It probably should have heated the hot end and taken the filament out. Now I'm going to have to reinstall this heated up eventually. I don't think I'm going to be able to do a cold pull here. Now, all I needed to do since I'm using the tap is loosen one side. I left the other as is. I'll probably just keep that connected and just unstring the belts. So I'll just pull them out and then rewire them around. Now you want to make sure that these two pieces in particular are different depending on the side you're installing the printer. On my printer, the left-hand side of the printer, if I'm facing it, has the lower bearings. The right-hand side, as I'm facing it, has the high bearings. That's really the only area that I can think of. I don't think most of the stuff in the back matters, and everything else you could sort of tell. These pieces are the point here. So if you're looking at this, there's a point. They're always going to be pointing towards you and pointing towards the outside. So it'll sit on the printer like this. And we'll take a look when I install that bit. So I'm going to continue unstringing the belts. And as I said, I'm going to leave the one side connected on the printer here, or on the print head, on the tap. So that way, at least one side's in and tight, and then I'll figure out how to get everything back in. So let me keep removing pieces, and then we'll come back when I have everything stripped. Okay, so I'm starting off with my installing the end piece here. Now I've already put down a T-nut. It's in the rail already. Now I just got to see if I can catch it, which appears I did. Go push this towards the end. Want it nice and tight. Now there is a screw hole here at the bottom, and I could use that to adjust this piece. I've typically not had to use this, so right now I'm not going to put a screw in there. I have found that if I'm not careful, I do wind up pulling the top of the screw off, because I've done that several times. Now I am going to loosen this just a tiny little bit more. Want it at least a little loose, so if I have to move it, I can. I need to tighten it a little bit, probably a little bit on one side for when I do the belts. So again, I can move things around some. I have the carriages are on here and they're open. Now, hopefully you can see this. Let me turn the camera a little bit. So I have the carriage here. Now notice there's a hole in the front here. That's for oil. So I've already oiled this up. I took a alcohol wipe and sort of cleaned the track a little bit. And then I've gone ahead and oiled this up. It seems like it's gone pretty smoothly here. The rail, like I said, I wiped it down, and then I just wiped it down with a microfiber rag and then hit it with a alcohol wipe. And then this should lube everything up. So the rail's nice and clean. I mistakenly at one point put thermal paste on here because I mistook it for oil. And so I had thermal paste all over the place. So I finally cleaned that all up. Luckily, the thermal paste didn't ruin anything, but it was still a dumb mistake on my part. So the next piece we're going to do is this one. And that's going to hold the X bar. First thing I'm going to do is undo the screws on the top and basically screw this into the carriage. So let me switch over, and the screws, let me zoom out a little bit. So what I'll do is take out all the screws on top. I need to be very, very careful, and I'll probably flip this over like this. I don't want all the gears and the bars to come out. So I'm going to hold this upside down when I unscrew it. And I'll take out all 5 of these screws, because I'll totally need to open it up, because 2 of the screws in the carriage I can reach from here, but the other 2 are underneath and they're hard to get to. So give me a minute and I'll come back and I'll show you what this looks like. So I've taken that X piece apart, and now I need to screw it in here. So I'm going to screw the X piece into the carriage. So that gives me one corner, and I'm just basically doing, I've done the back corner, back right corner. Now I'm going to do the front left corner. Now, something I'm going to point out is this piece is using button head screws, which there's nothing wrong with button head screws, but I've always had issues. I find that I strip those real easy. Now, I don't think, that may just be I'm rough with things. Now, I have one side on. I did that on camera. I'm going to go ahead and put on the other side. I'll do that off camera just to get it done, and then we'll start getting things situated. Now, what I've done is I've put one side on, and it is just a little tight. Now, I've seated this piece, and you have to seat the extrusion and then put the top on. Now, this is really hard because these pieces are all loose. There's some little washers, so you have to be careful as you're putting this together. Now, what I've done is just use my thumb, tighten these slightly, and we have 2 bigger screws that are going to wind up going basically, and let me get the correct screws. They're basically going to go here and here. So let me find the other screw. I think I have it on my desk. The big thing here is you do not want to over tighten these screws. I mean, I can't say that enough. I've caused myself a lot of problems trying to get screws back out simply because I over tighten them. So these in particular, you're going to tighten, but not go crazy. Now you're again tightening these together, and I'm going to tighten it just a little bit. The other thing I have to do is I'm going to have a bigger screw here. So I have this bigger screw, and then I have a T-nut right here. Whoops. See if I can get this focused. T-nut. Go slip it in the extrusion, push it under, then there's a hole right here. So let's see if I have this positioned correctly. I'm just going to tighten this with my hand for right now. Now, I have the hot end on here, and what I'm going to do is I've put the little stops in here. I have extras of those. They're at the end stops for the rail, so the carriage can't come off. Now I'm just going to pull this all the way forward because this will bind if this isn't straight. So I'm going to hold it going forward, and now I'm going to start tightening everything. And the big thing, again, don't over tighten. So I'm going to grab the extrusion in the middle, pull it forward, and now I'm just going to tighten everything. So I'm tightening on both sides. Again, don't want it crazy tight. Now everything's nice and snug, and it's moving all right. I might need to adjust a little bit more, but it's going to be a little different once I have the belt pressure on too. So I'm just going to sort of leave this as is. I think this is all right. Everything feels tight. Now I'm going to work on the motors in the back. So let me switch over and we'll take a look at those. Now, as we can see in the directions here, they actually have a little piece to measure how far the pulley has to be from on the motor shaft, on the stepper. Since I already have this set up and I'm just switching out, I was able to uninstall the motors and then screw them in. So let me just show this on camera real quick. So if you look here, and let me move this around a little bit. So I have two T-nuts on the bottom here, and they're sitting like this. Although I actually have a metal tube here. I dropped that somewhere, so let me find that and put that back on. But the motor's going to sit like this. You're going to take out these three screws, and then they screw right into the bottom of the motor. So you're taking out, let's zoom back out. You're taking out these three screws here, and then just screwing the motor in. You want it oriented like this. The motor's going to sit just like this in the back. Let me find this cover, because I can't believe I took that off and then didn't notice. So let me find that, and then we'll put this back together. So what I'm doing is I'm going to take this back and set it here in the corner. Now, the way this is going to go is just like that. And I'm going to tighten this in real quick. Again, don't want to over tighten, but you do want it sitting there. And as we can see, I have it in. I am going to plug in the motor now just to make sure when I route the cords, I route it around the wires. Yeah, so we have that in. Now, the last step is to route the belts. So I'm basically going to route the belts back around and hook them back into the tap over here. Now, I think Let me see if in the directions they show you how to do the belts, and that way you could see that. Now, what's funny about this is they didn't have all these pictures. When I put mine together, I actually watched a video of somebody else putting one together, and that's how I figured out how to do the belts. What I need to do is, this is the bottom belt, and so I'm basically just going to run this around similar to the way they're doing it. Or I'm sorry, that's the top belt. So we're going to do the top belt first. Top belt goes towards the back and is basically going around the pulleys. And let me see if I can get this. I'm not going to try to do this on camera. And in fact, let me pause and come back. Now, I use the instructions here to do both the top and bottom belts. One of the things you want to do is you want to loosen these when you're trying to do the belt. I probably, if you're changing this out, I would get new belts. I made the mistake of trying to reuse the belt, and that honestly was horrible because I just didn't have enough slack. And it took me a while to wrestle it in place. So that's not the kit's fault. That's more mine. I just should have put on new belts, but I thought, oh, it'll be fine. And that's the famous last words, besides hold my beer. The only thing I would say about the kit, again, loosen these when you're trying to tighten the belt, and then pull these back. And for when you're trying to tighten everything. Now I have everything, I think, tensioned appropriately. Everything's running. You want to check all the belts to make sure it's running through the pulleys and it's not sitting on any edges. Everything here is running right. I can run this back and forth. And it seems a little tight. And I may need to do a little bit more oil here. But that's more has to do with, like I said, I'm going to have to check all the belts here, just how I have them sitting. But all in all, really like the kit. Again, should take you about an hour to put together. I think it's well worth it. I like this much better than the plastic parts. I think the CNC cut, again, gives you higher quality. Now, I did mess up the hot end. I broke a wire as I was trying to get some more space to tighten those belts. So what I'm going to do is, in my next video, I'm probably going to, in my next set of videos, I'm going to go ahead and change out the case of this printer and also do an enclosure. So that way I can print whatever I want on it. I have one other open frame printer, and that one will be getting an enclosure as well. So if you have any questions or comments, please post them below. I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Have a good day.